Once I get everybody talking, live stream. We are got it, and we are coming live and hot and heavy once more. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, welcome to a Cyndicate Talks. I'm your host, Mitch Cammidge, and welcome. A Cyndicate Talks formed at the beginning of the pandemic, bringing accessible business education to our members as well as to the general public. The idea behind a Cyndicate Talks is to put the best of business practices, ideas, and designs at the forefront and give people free information that they and their businesses can continue to use to thrive and grow. Business education should never be as challenging as it is right now for a business owner to find. Our businesses, ourselves, and our lives are worth more than the sum of what we are experiencing at the moment. And because of that, we must learn to do better. And so amongst our wonderful tribe and business family, we find those that have an exceptional business, exceptional story, and more importantly, exceptional information to make you better as a person and as a business owner. Our subject today is about care of self. We can agree that the last 19 months, as we've stretched into a pandemic, and this episode 1 of season 3 of a Cyndicate Talks, is coming to you October 15th of 2021. And we, 19 months into a pandemic, have to learn to do better for ourselves, because we are often, we are the only person that we both wake up and go to sleep with at night, first and last. We are the first person that's going to know when something is either right or wrong. And then to be able to care for our families appropriately, care for our businesses, our employees, our customers, our vendors, etc. We have to do that. So today's theme, what we're going to do and who's going to talk to you, is centered around that. First of all, taking care of yourself. None of us is doing a good enough job at being able to maintain ourselves, our mental welfare, and our lives. We have to do better. Secondly, having dealt with the time frame and the stresses and the pressure that's come because of 19 months of the pandemic, it's incredibly important for us to make sure that we look at what those pressures and stresses are and learn to mitigate them very, very well. So taking care of ourselves, managing that pressure and that stress. And third, Wes, good to see you, brother. And you're outside. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And that third one is business has begun to shift. And with that, we've had to develop that wonderful competency or personal skill, resilience. You need to be mindful of these things. You need to be better. And today, our speakers, our principal speaker and our panel of speakers today include the wonderful self-kindness coach, Cari. Cari, give everybody a wave from the glory box there. My brother from another mother from Four Tree Coaching, Vierboom, he's in the house as well. And of course, my other brother from another mother, Mr. Wes Kowalchuk. Wes, it's good to see you as always. So today's theme, of course, for the three of you, we're going to navigate this. I'm going to ask you for advice, ideas, and suggestions. It's your job to help educate people on what they have to do, take good care of themselves, because it's not getting any easier. The pressure and stress that has been built up over the last 19 months, the impact it's had on us. And of course, and man, you're rocking Starbucks, loving that. And of course, business has shifted because of the pandemic, etc. And we have to do a better job at developing that talent and that skill that we've got. So while we're sitting here, I'm going to get you guys going the very first theme. So as you've been seeing in my other organization, my regular event series right now, Virtual Business Box Lunch, I say now common phrase when I come onto these events, do some push-ups, shake it out, get ready to start answering some questions. And I'm going to get the spotlight removed from me and start spotlighting a bunch of other people. And I believe this is a function. Add spotlight. Add spotlight. There we go. I got Cari, I got Don, I got Wes. Brothers and sisters, you're here today first to provide that wonderful resource education to our tribe members, and next to help educate the rest of the world a bit better, take care of themselves, deal with the pressure and stresses that have occurred over the last year, and of course, deal with that shifting business. But let's focus on that first one. The last year has taken its toll on people. It's taken a toll, and yet we're all still here. And you three represent something that I believe fully in, that if you don't start with yourself, it's not going to take care of itself from there. So with that being in mind, what have people not been doing right over the last 19 months? What are people doing right? And what needs to be some of the tips and strategies to take care of themselves? Self first, know thyself, care for self. And what do they have to do going forward? And this is where the discussion starts. Cari, Don, Wes, what do we got for our syndicate tribe?
I'll happily start if you like, because I've been thinking about this ever since you asked me to talk today. So one of the biggest things that I've seen increasing over the last 18 months is people that are normally very resilient, hard workers, able to push themselves, are suddenly asking themselves, like, what's wrong with me? I don't have energy. I'm struggling to be motivated. I'm struggling to get stuff done, to get out of bed some days. And their first thought is, what's wrong with me? Like we immediately tend to be really, really hard on ourselves. And bringing kindness to yourself instead can make all the difference in the world. Like if you imagine someone, you see someone walking down the street and they have this massive, heavy load on their back and they're bent over with it. Do you think, what's wrong with them? Why can't they stand up straight? No, you think like, oh my gosh, like maybe I should go and carry it for them for a while, or I can totally understand why their back is bent because they have this massive heavy load. Well, all of us right now have a massive heavy load on our backs that we have never, ever in our lives had to carry before. None of us have ever lived through a almost 2-year-long global pandemic. Our whole systems don't know how to handle it because we've never done it before. So instead of being hard on ourselves, bringing some kindness and care, just like you would for that person on the street who's bent over with a heavy load, bringing that to yourself in small daily ways can make so much difference. And I love to hear what everybody else is going to say too.
Don, West, thoughts on that?
I'm hopping on a plane tomorrow, and I think of the emergency announcements they put on that in case of emergency, the gas mask will come down and oxygen there. You have to put it on yourself first. You have to serve yourself to make sure you can help others. So you're not going to be good to your family. You're not going to be good to the other people in your company until you take care of yourself. So give yourself some oxygen. And, I'm sure Cari has all kinds of techniques and things that would help those kind of people. Or any of us, and it would be great to hear some of those later on. But that's what I always think of first. So you have to help yourself, give yourself some oxygen in order to be able to help others around you.
I agree 100% with both of you guys. Definitely self-care is one of the most important things. When we look at entrepreneurship, 90% of it, it's a mindset, it's a mental game. And once you got the mindset side of it figured out, 10% is mechanics, right? And if you have to struggle getting out of bed, you're not motivated. You're not motivated enough. You're not inspired. And so one of those things that I like to help my clients with, and myself as well, is go back to the vision board. Go back to the vision board and ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Right? And then ask yourself, is that aligned with my values? And sometimes, especially with all this stuff in the pandemic, some of the values that have been maybe underlying in your psyche may have come to the surface with all this stuff that's going on in the world, right? For me, my number one value is my family, right? Number one. And that's caused me to make some decisions in my life that I wouldn't have made prior to the pandemic. I would have said, no, that's going backwards. I'm not doing that. But now that I'm in the middle of the pandemic, I've moved backwards, or what at least I thought was moving backwards, and my business has flourished because my mindset is in the right place. And, for all those business owners that are out there, like Cari, like you mentioned, that are struggling. You know, we're high performers, and all of a sudden, you know, now we're not getting it. You know, not everybody's 100% on their game, right? Look at Babe Ruth, Sammy Sosa. Those guys cranking out the ball, they're hitting home runs. They don't hit the ball every time they're at bat. You know, most of them are like 300, 400 batting average, if that. Very rarely do they get above 500, which means that they hit 1 in 3 balls, right? And so when you think about how often they hit a home run, well, us as entrepreneurs, we have to be willing to, you know, try to swing and hit the ball. And if it doesn't go, let's take a step back, ask ourselves, what do we do? Where can we learn from it and move forward? And that's all we can do, right? I mean, that's just my perspective. And trust me, I'm coming from a background of I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict. I've contemplated suicide on a couple of occasions. I've been bankrupt. I've made millions. I've lost millions. It's just one of those things. Life is life. And the choices that we make every day allow us to, in our minds, allow us to adapt and overcome the situation during the day. It allows us to respond to the situation. Because at the end of the day, all we can control is ourselves. We can't control the outside environment. We can't control anything near us. We can only control our emotions and how we react or respond to a situation. And the choices that we make around that are what get us through these bad times.
I heard a number of great things in there. I want you to be specific. So we talked about how we're punishing ourselves. We've heard some heavy lifting already. It had nothing to do with the pandemic. Wes's life, like the rest of ours, full of complexity. Same with Cari, same with Dawn, etc. We are all dealing with unique situations because it is our own experience as we navigate this thing called life. But many of the constant struggles that we have are universal. And so we think of that, we think of care for self first, and to go to the increase in suicide rates, suicide attempts, and suicide tendencies in a pandemic, the increase in alcoholism, in spousal abuse, in child abuse. It means that our care of self is starting to struggle, lack, that we're losing our ability to be able to control and focus, that our strategies and our opportunities to do that, that the pressures we're constantly under. I can express and talk about that too. I've got little kids that have been homesick an awful lot in the last month, and we've been blessed that it's not the worst, but it does mean we're often underfoot, and you can certainly tell at certain moments that while we love each other, little tense, right? When you've been yelled at by a 6-year-old, you know you're getting yelled at, right? So for those reasons, we sit there and have to find some better strategies. So now that we've got some of the it's okay in place, because if you didn't get that from Cari and Dawn and Wes, it's okay. What do people do about it so this person, that person is well served, so that those tendencies to self-destruction, self-destructive behavior, taking it out on people around them, or ability just to be able to wake up in the morning, put on pants, and accomplish what we have to. That's victory too, right? Thoughts?
It's so true. You need strategies. You need to be able to set yourself up for something structured that helps you be successful, especially when we're dealing with things we've never dealt with before. So one of my biggest suggestions that forms the foundation of a lot of the work that I do with clients begins with awareness. So it looks like this. Let's say you've got a busy day ahead. Usually our tendency is to kind of just like, okay, I'll just do enough self-care so that I can get on with my day. And then I'm going to kind of ignore myself because I've got stuff to do. I don't have the time or energy to really pay attention. So I'm just going to kind of push it down and just like focus on the doing, right? Because at least I can do something when there's so much out of our control. If you can take a moment and you can decide where it is. Sometimes it can be when you're brushing your teeth in the morning. Sometimes it can be on your coffee break, or you get to decide, but pick a moment where you're doing it every day, right? Like there's some kind of habit that you're doing every day. While you're doing that thing, take 2 minutes and check in with yourself. That's it. you're not fixing anything. You're not looking at yourself as a problem that has to be fixed. You're just kind of like, I always put my hand on my heart, because I'm like, I check in with myself and say, hey, okay, how are you doing? What's happening for you today? And I'm not critical of myself. I'm not judgmental. I'm just lovingly curious. What's happening today? And the beautiful thing is, when you take those 2 minutes and you just check in with yourself, your entire stress system calms down. Because when your stress level is increasing and your cortisol is shooting through, it's because your inner well-being knows that it's being ignored. And so it starts getting more and more anxious. So when you have those pauses built into your day, you check in, you just ask yourself, okay, what's happening? What am I feeling in my body? And so on. And then usually you can find one small supportive action that can help you with whatever you're feeling. It can be tiny. It can be like, I'm just going to stay in the bathroom for an extra 5 minutes. It can be, maybe I will say no to that extra meeting tonight, because when I really check in with myself, what I need most is rest, or whatever, right? But you can't get to those solutions unless you get real with where you're actually at. So it's 2 minutes, and you can piggyback it on to whatever you're already doing. While you're driving is also great. You're in the car by yourself. Talk to yourself. How am I doing? Everybody will just think you're on some kind of Bluetooth call, so you can have a full conversation with yourself. Anyway, I want to hear what everybody else says too.
Yeah, someone was telling me last week, it was actually Leslie Evans, who's a life coach. She was talking about, Dawn, you have to recognize what you're feeling. What's that emotions that are there? So that's that part of that check-in. Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling happy? Am I sad? Just recognizing that. Because sometimes I think I keep all the emotions down below, and then the head is just doing all the work. And then sometimes you got to like check in with the rest and say, hey, am I happy today? Why aren't I happy today? Let's get with it. The life is good. And, I'm not doing some, really dangerous work, like say my wife's or some other wives in frontline healthcare, so I have a pretty good life in a sense. So let's appreciate what that is. And so sometimes got to check in that emotion and pull it up. Hey, happy, that's good. I better, maybe I can use that for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
That is really good, Dawn. Some good advice there, just checking in, feeling your emotions, because sometimes we tend to push our emotions down. At least I know I've done that. And the outcome is never good. The outcome's never good. It gets ugly. Some of the strategies that I do to kind of help me make it through this last 18 months is, first and foremost, self-care is really, really important. And I spent quite a bit of time during COVID not going to the gym, and that played a negative impact on my mental psyche, right? So one of the challenges that I've found in what I do, especially in business, is we have to be very intentional about what we're doing, right? And the business beast, whichever way you want to go, the business beast, we have to look at our businesses like an entity all on its own, and for it to grow and flourish, we got to take it to the gym and exercise and make it work out. But we have to do the same thing for our mind. We have to do the same thing for our body, because we have a mind-body connection that's really powerful. For me, it starts out in the morning with meditation. I do a guided meditation. Depending on which one I use, it'll be 20 to 30 minutes long. That kind of just sets the stage for my psyche for the day. It allows me to be in the moment and being able to take advantage. Absolutely. Do I have a full schedule? Sure I do. I'm booking out 2 weeks out now. And it's, I try to fit stuff in, but I have time blocks in my calendar. That's part of why my calendar's out 2 weeks now is I'm taking 2 hours in the morning after I drop my son off at school to go to the gym, bang out that exercise so I can be a physical beast, get that stress out of my system, And I only have two speeds. When I'm in the gym, I'm either doing nothing and chatting, or I'm all out and throwing weights around like a madman. And that tends to be the same way I am in my business as well, which is why the business piece comes out. But if we're not de-stressing, and you have to do something that's fun to de-stress, right? And like Cari said, when you're aware that you're being stressed, go do something fun to get rid of it, right? For me, if it's not in the gym, it's going to the gun range and blowing off some gunpowder, because that to me that's fun. It de-stresses going out and, you know, killing a target. That is my kind of fun. But whatever fun that is, if it's bungee jumping, if it's cliff diving, you know, parachuting, right? A friend of mine tried to talk me into going parachuting the other day, and I'm going, not quite sure I'm ready for that. One day it might be on my bucket list just to say I did it, but we have to be aware of what we're doing and be intentional about what we're doing. So be intentional about de-stressing, be intentional about exercising your mind, right? Read for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. If you have a hard time reading, take and read 10 pages a day out of a book that is going to cause you to have a new thought process in your brain. That creates new chemistry, that creates new neural pathways, that creates a new opportunity that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. So read, meditate, do some training to improve how you show up in your field of play, whether that's, you know, whatever your craft is, and then time block yourself so you make sure you're doing those things, and then just go out and be intentional about the rest of your day. At the end of your day, and this is really key for me that I found where my biggest success has come from, at the end of the day, I look at how I've done my day, what went wrong, what went right, and I look at it and go, okay, where can I improve? I had 3 people back out on me on a meeting today. What do I do? How do I prevent that from happening next time? And, you know, sometimes it's, you know, using your CRM to set up reminder notices, or maybe make a phone call to say, hey, I just want to remind you of the meeting. Or maybe it's pre-qualifying them to make sure that they're the right person to meet with, right? Do some of those things. And if you're intentional about how you do those, at the end of the day, you plan that out, execute it the next day, guess what? Your business moves forward. You move forward. You move forward because A, you're in a better state of mind, better state of physical ability, and that creates that mind-body connection, and then your business can grow. And when your business grows, it creates that loop that allows you to have a better state of mind, better physical fit, and then better business, right? The more you believe, the more action you take, the bigger action you take that gets the more positive results, the more potential your body and your mind can let loose. The more potential you let loose, the more intention you can have. And Tony Robbins talks about this loop, right? And it's just a belief system. And if your mindset is right, that belief system will kick in big time, right? So start out your day with a little bit of meditation to just set the stage for the day, to be in the moment. Exercise, get your body right. Read to exercise your brain, get your brain right. And then be intentional about how you execute on the rest of the day. And then take time for yourself when you de-stress. That's the rule. And you know what? Am I perfect with it? Absolutely not. But do I have fun? Absolutely, I do every day.
What I love about bringing experts at what they do into a discussion like this, and again, a Syndicate Talk's been on hiatus for a while. We're back here starting season 3. Wes, you've blown out question 1 and question 2 entirely. So we're already into what is the strategies to sit there and deal with that? What are the kind of stresses and pressures, and what do we have to go to? And of course, question 3 is shifting business, building resilience, and what we got to do. So you've already opened the floodgates. Pandora's box is wide open. Cari, Dawn, what do we have to add there right now? Because here's what it is. And then now that we're going to do that, we're going to tailor it a little more. We're going to tweak it. We're going to twist a little bit. So Wes, you started that. You opened Pandora's box. I love it. So there is a care of self physically, a care of self mentally, and a care of self spiritually. Got to happen. But when we look at these things, I'm going to add a couple elements in. We face threats all the time. Threats are financial, threats are emotional, threats are mental, threats are physical, threats are from outside environment considerations, threats are internal, right, as well. Otherwise, why would we have suicide, drug and alcohol dependency, et cetera? Why would we have incomplete families, devastated family units, et cetera, spousal abuse, parental abuse, elder abuse? All these other things come in because the enemies are plenty, and some of them are inside our own heads. So let's keep going with the theme of what we should be doing strategy wise, and let's start to get specific on something that we should add into each of these areas, whether it's tackling a threat directly or whether it is taking care of our physical self, mental self, and emotional self, so that people have new coping mechanisms. Because the next 18 or 19 months probably going to look an awful lot like what we've got right now. And we need people to have life shifts to care for self. So with that in mind, Cari, Dawn, let's get some thoughts from you guys, and then let's start attacking these different areas and give people something to work with.
Something that Wes said about the neural pathways really struck me, because, and it's so true that we have built neural pathways through this pandemic that didn't exist before. And some of those are supportive and some of them are not. So an example of an unsupportive neural pathway would be like, okay, I read the news and my stress goes up. I start freaking out about the future, and then I make decisions from fear, right? Because everything can bring up a lot of fear. And so that can become a habit where you receive something that makes you stressed out, it puts you to a place of fear, and then you base decisions on fear. And even for business, that can be very, very detrimental, right? When we're making decisions from a place of fear, we are not using our creative minds, we're not using all the faculties and knowledge that we have within us, because fear makes our brain like lock up and just look at the bare minimum of information. So one strategy you can take is when you're in a place of making decisions, whether it's for yourself, your family, or your business, really ask yourself, am I basing this decision on a fear? And if the answer is yes, then you need to dig in a little deeper and find your why for doing it that goes deeper than a fear, because fear-based decisions are extremely limited and they don't have a long view to them, and they don't have a lot of wide benefits. So you have to have a reason for the decisions that isn't based on fear. And this goes back to what we all talked about before. You won't know that it's based on fear unless you're already checking in with yourself. And if you're like realizing, oh my God, my shoulders are super tense and my stomach is like in knots when I think about making this decision, if you're not paying attention to that, you might not realize that you're in a place of fear when you're making that decision. So checking in with yourself, bringing yourself to that place of like, okay, I know I have all of these capabilities, all these possibilities, and I'm going to base my decision on that, instead of the worst case scenario that was just like hijacking my body the last 10 minutes or whatever. So especially important right now, because you can, if you look for something to be afraid of, you will find it. But if you look for something that's supportive and positive and grounded, you will find it. So be aware of what you're looking for.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that, Cari. That we have this fright or flight syndrome physically. You're talking a lot about the mental situation, how you're viewing things, whatever, but our physical bodies get into this fright or flight syndrome. And we used to be, before a pandemic, you'd have a lot of stress at work, or this or that, and you're carrying it. And yeah, the things you start feeling like stress and stomach aches and things like that. You're in this thing, and it's doing bad things to your body, because your body is now making decisions for you about how it's going to handle nutrition and what's going to happen. I'm going to eat a lot more because I'm worried about, famine coming up, or this or that, or I need a lot of energy, so I'm packing on the pounds. And then COVID came in, we got COVID-19, extra 19 pounds. And nutrition wise, we're depleting our body's ability to even handle the stress. So it's one thing mentally to kind of help calm down and get back to the right kind of space and get rid of that kind of thing. But we also have to know that maybe sometimes we have to supplement nutritionally something else in our bodies. You know, make sure you got the right kind of vitamins happening and you're eating the right kind of food groups and so forth. And one thing I like to do is kind of to restart the system is I do a fast every week for 36 hours. So from supper all the way to breakfast of the next following day. And it just helps recharge and re-cleanse. It gives your body a break. It's a circuit breaker, you know, for nutrition. And it really seems to help for me. One, it drops a couple pounds off every week and then offsets the ones I'm putting on because of stress. So, but I just think nutrition has to be something, and get some help with that. Talk to people. There's all kinds of, you know, naturopaths or other people in the nutrition field that can help with those things. But I think it goes hand in hand. Physical and mental, you know, both need to help deal with this fear.
Mm-hmm. All right. Give everybody, all three of you, let's give you a second. Physical, mental, emotional. One must do for the next 30 days. Next 30 days, set them up in each one of these categories: physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. Either one, doesn't matter what it is. This is a must-have, must-do. This is the single thing, the single task, the single practice, the single ideal that they have to carry through on so that they can begin to build a new habit. So if we can, let's come to that for a moment. Dawn just brought up fight or flight. It's a very common practice, very common behavior that we have, and that comes from the oldest portion of our brain. And the oldest portion of our brain will hijack everything to do with what we're doing every chance it gets. And it takes a consistent, repetitive behavior over at least 22 days. Now, here's something from a programming standpoint why I'm saying the next 30. If you start a new habit now and you don't get to that 22-day mark, every time you have a break in a brand new habit, you're resetting that initial programming clock for yourself and your ability to follow through and have a new change, new habit, new lifestyle component every time you do that. So people wonder why we lose by the time January 28th comes around for New Year's resolutions, why we don't go to the gym regularly by February 2nd, why our diet doesn't stick by January 19th or January 20th, because we start with a new pattern, a new habit, it breaks somewhere in the middle, resets the clock, and we think, damn, this is tough. And we just throw it away instead of having been consistent for those just over 3 weeks. So physical, mental, and spiritual or emotional, they need one must do, must have, must perform in the next 30 days so they and everybody else can reset themselves. Dawn, I'm going to let you go first.
I suggest in the physical part, you look on YouTube and you look up Qigong, Qigong. It's about deep breathing. And someone just told me, it was a year ago, and I was in Cyndicate and I was interviewing somebody, and he said, I asked what's the biggest thing he discovered in the last year, and he said deep breathing. And I said, really? You know, and he didn't necessarily use Qigong, but it's just a method of just exercising in deep breathing to give yourself energy in the morning. 15 minutes. And you watch the YouTube, and then after that, you can pretty well do it yourself while you do anything else. But it's such a beautiful way to start the day and put energy back into your body. Mentally, you know, when you talk about habits and so forth, read the book, James Clear, Atomic Habits. He talks about all the pitfalls about get in your way of making habits. And there are so many different ways to either help enforce them or that get in the way of, you know, making them fail. So it's a great little book to help you sort that out. And, you know, like I say, get something to help you make a habit. And spiritually, I just made this decision yesterday. It was time for me to read another spiritual book. Get off the business book, get off the science fiction. You know, it's time I have to rotate something in that develops you spiritually, that makes you think, but what's my place in the world and how do I fit in? And, you know, what are other aspects that I should be thinking about, you know, the bigger picture. So go to the bookstore, go to the section on healing and spiritual and see what book grabs you, and maybe buy that one and take it home.
Mm-hmm. Wes, the floor is yours.
Some really great stuff there. Atomic Habits, awesome book for sure. I haven't heard of the Qigong method. Interesting. I'm going to check it out though. I have practiced the Wim Hof Method. So if you guys are familiar with Wim Hof, it's pretty cool. For myself, one of the big things that I see is really, really important is we're social creatures. You know, if you go back to what Mitch was talking about the oldest part of our brain, you know, the sex, shelter, and food, those three things, we got everything covered. But really, if you look back when we were cavemen, we were social creatures. We all lived in the cave together, right? And so for us to be mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally intact, we need to be social. And so one of the things that I would highly recommend is if folks are listening to this, they get involved with the Cyndicate, get into their own tribe, get around a group of people that inspire you to become a better human being. Now, whether that's Cyndicate or another group, it doesn't really matter. But don't go in there to be the biggest fish in the pond. Go in there to be inspired to grow to the next level, both personal life and in business, right? That is, for me, that's the number one thing. When I go into a networking meeting, I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I want to be in a place where I can learn from and be inspired to get to the next level. And that's super exciting to me because that helps me identify what path I need to go down, right? Definitely, I want to agree with Dawn on the mental side. You know, being able to just set the stage for yourself, right? Read some really good books, right? Spiritually, my wife and I just started an alpha program, so we're going down that road. Haven't been down that program before, so we're looking into it just to dig into our spirituality a little bit better. Because you know what? To me, it doesn't matter what religion you belong to. What matters is, does it inspire you to be a better human being? Does it give you guidelines to be a better human being? If it does, go for it. Dig in. Do you know why? Because the alternative is too freaking scary, right? There's so much negative out there, so much evil out there. You got to be on the other side, right? Because otherwise, who is going to be our leaders tomorrow? Our kids, right? Our kids. So if we're not there to inspire them to be better human beings, we're going to end up with leaders like we got right now. And trust me, I don't know about all of us are from Alberta, so we all know that Trudeau sucks, right? Didn't want to get into the politics, but there it goes.
No politics, no COVID. Wes, thank you, my brother.
I'm bad. So having said that, I disqualified myself from any more comments.
You can't be quiet. I still need you for the other 18 minutes. Cari, what you got?
I appreciate all these ideas so much, other than the political one, but we'll leave it there. Yeah, I'm really interested in the deep breathing too. I've done a lot of meditation, but I think of Qigong and I think of movement. So I'm very curious to look into that. Wim Hof has been suggested by quite a few people. So I'm not going to let the idea of cold showers keep me from trying it. So I'm going to look that up. And I think my biggest suggestion is related to the idea that mind, body, spirit are completely tied and integrated with each other. So anything you do in any of those areas that is truly supportive will benefit all of the areas. So one thing, when I mentioned the check-in, checking in with yourself, if you can do it like in the morning as part of your morning routine, and you can ask yourself, okay, how's my mind today? How's my body doing? How's my spirit? And sometimes it can be so interesting because you'll get a totally different answer. Sometimes your mind is like, yeah, my mind is on it. And my body is like, ugh. And my spirit is sort of maybe just quiet, so kind of looking at yourself from that position of checking in and then saying, okay, if I was to give the part of myself that really needs something today, what it needs, which part am I going to prioritize? Because sometimes we can only do one thing, right? Like we might only have time for one thing. So if that day you check in and you realize, yeah, it's my body today. That's what really needs some care and some effort. Or maybe it's my spirit. Maybe it's the day to take myself for a walk at lunch just to feed my soul a little bit, right? But basing your decisions from that place of of kindness and curiosity, and then making it a priority. There's no other way around it. If you keep waiting for the moment to arrive when your life is going to give you permission to make yourself a priority, it's not going to happen. You have to make it happen. So you have to schedule it, block it off in your calendar, even if it's only 10 minutes, that's just for you, but it can make all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, and now we're there and we're narrowing down a little further. We're going to shift back into that business mode for a second. And by the way, we're talking strategies here. So we've heard breathing, meditation, and by the way, Eastern Western philosophy, doesn't matter what it is, all of them are founded on the same basic principles. Is mindfulness when we're breathing, being able to focus, clarify, or calm our brain for a moment and get our thoughts to run concurrently, meaning that everything is running in harmony, which means the water's smooth. There's no ripples on the pond as you're doing it. Breathing centers and gets you to work there. Some form of physical movement, whether it is through stationary, stretching, or dynamic as well, to go with that area. So nurture mind, nurture soul, nurture body at the same time. And we said 22 days. What do people have to focus on the next 30 days? Atomic Habits has 19 chapters. Read one a day. Breathe, read a chapter. So there's a physical and there's a mental. Spiritual, get the water to go still. Or work out while you listen to the chapter in an audiobook and then breathe for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes. West, you got it, buddy. Pop out, pop back in when you're ready to go. Can do. Do something like this. Set yourself up with a brand new habit. The book's called Atomic Habits, for crying out loud. But get yourself into that spot where you're going to be able to do something like this. Do it consistently every day, because in 30 days, you will be in a much better spot to facilitate. So we're talking about being kind to self, and in many respects, talking about getting a reset, having the ability to calm everything and get yourself at least back to neutral, if not to a positive mindset as well. And Wes will get you reconnected here in a moment on your other device, and then we can bounce from one to the other. So please stand by while we complete your long distance call. Thank you. Waiting. Done. Right, we're in. We'll get him to start his video. We'll get him to join the collective. There we go. Back at her. Add spotlight. Loving it. Good to see you back. And he's got the car in the background this time too. Nicely done, sir. Nicely done. All right. So we are talking about getting people to be nicer to themselves in 3 different areas, and we can give them a 30-day plan right now. Invest in a book like Atomic Habits or another. Guess what? A lot of books have, well, Cari just happens to be a writing coach as well. And a lot of books have somewhere in the 19 to 30 chapter range, which means for the next 30 days, there's no excuse not to read a chapter a day. Breathe, be mindful, and perhaps meditate every day and do at least one thing. So what does that sound like it's going to take us? Reading one chapter. Cari, what's the average size of a chapter?
It's about 20 pages.
How long does it take the average person to read 20 pages?
Half an hour.
Okay. So there's half an hour. You got to spend half an hour reading a book chapter every day. I know I got Matt and Paul on here as well. Matt, how long does it take once you get into cycle for Wim Hof? How long does it take you on average to breathe your breathing exercises?
20 minutes most, with 5 rounds.
With 5 rounds, okay. But when we're starting our cycle to start with, what's that starting round? What's that starting cycle?
Oh, it's a minute. So you're talking about 5 minutes total if you're doing 3 rounds.
Okay, we're getting started right now. So 20 minutes, 25 minutes to read one chapter out of Atomic Habits. 5 minutes at 1 minute rounds, start Wim Hof. So there we got a physical and we got a mental. And we need something spiritual. So when we're breathing, what are we going to do? We're focusing on our breathing, right? Get into Wim Hof, Qigong, either one works the same. Mindfulness, you want the ripples to go still in the pond. We're talking 30 minutes of your time for the next 19 days. And then if you keep going after that, what are you going to do? Add a brand new book and read a chapter a day. All right. So we got a strategy to get some calm introduced, to get some essential care time. And we're talking about doing it 30 minutes. 30 minutes to get your shit wired. Okay. Now we're going to flip that switch to the other side, because life is not always calm, as we know. Life is volatile. The outside world is full of ripples in the pond. It is sometimes violent. It is dynamic. It is sometimes not fun. We don't expect certain things to happen, etc. But here they come. They're coming for you anyway. And so when we get ourselves into a better spot, we're aligning ourselves to be able to deal, receive, etc. But then there's that other wonderful bit that we need to build as well. And it is a skill called resilience. Resilience is the ability to get knocked down and get back up and get back after it. Resilience is a well-defined and highly sought-after skill for senior leaders, managers, and some of the best in the world. Resilience is our ability to continue to take knocks. Now, there's perseverance, which, like the Terminator, means you keep moving no matter what. Resilience is how we get knocked down and stand back up, because life's violent. Whether you've ever been punched in the mouth or not, it's irrelevant. Yeah, Wes, what you got, brother?
So resilience is just like a muscle, right? It's the more you exercise it, the stronger you get at it, right? So the more you get knocked down, the faster you can bounce back, and the faster you bounce back, the sooner you can take advantage of opportunities that you might have missed otherwise. So absolutely, the skill for sure. Muscle, I believe 100%, because I've been knocked down so many times, like I'm bald, right?
All right, so Wes, what now? Again, resilience often gets developed through life, but there are things that we can do. So before I get Don or Cari to weigh in on the idea of resilience, building better toughness in business, but more importantly in our lives, there were anecdotal reasons you got tougher, but what are some of the things that you focus on? Because resilience also has practice that goes with it too.
Certainly there is. For me, resilience is about, like you said, getting back up, getting knocked down. But, part of the getting up part is, what's my reason to get back up, right? So having a vision board and having that ability to know my why is powerful in bouncing back. And it's not a small why. Like, my why is huge. And that why does not let me take no. That why doesn't let me have a pity party. That why says, no, I got tons of people I got to help. I got to get my ass out there and kick some butt, take names, and keep going. And so when I get knocked down, I might be down for a day or two. But my wife, she's really good at this. She'll see right away that I'm not in a good space, and she goes, "You need to call somebody," right? And this is what I talk about: having that group of individuals around that inspire me to be a better human being. I reach out and I connect with those guys, and they get me out of my head right away. I get out of my head. Guess what? I'm back in the game. I'm back in the game. And that's what resilience is all about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Don, Cari, what we got? Resilience. Great thing, great skill. What are we doing with it?
I feel so grateful to be in this room of powerful business coaches, because the biggest thing I was thinking of in terms of business is kind of like what Wes said. When you're just focused on yourself and you hit a bump in the road, and our default is usually to give ourselves shit for it, pardon my French. And I actually have this in the background when I'm coaching, because I remind people that progress is not a straight upward line. It is a series of dips and valleys. And every time you dip, you're learning something and you're digging that learning in deeper. And then when you get back up again, you've learned more and you can go higher. But a lot of times we can't do that for ourselves. So my biggest suggestion for business owners is to get a business coach, just like the ones that are here, because you can't always talk yourself out of one of those valleys, because sometimes down in that valley you're just beating yourself up. Why did I make this mistake? Why didn't I know better? And that's just going to keep you in there. It's not going to allow you to dig the learning in and keep going. So sometimes you need that third party who can look at it objectively and say, hey man, look at everything you just learned, and now you know better, so you'll do better. And we need other people for that. We can't just do that by ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Don?
I think to the book, The Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz, and one of the main ones in there is don't take things personally. And I think so often when we have defeat or we have a setback or whatever, that we're blaming it on somebody else or they did it to us, or whatever. Well, we take that and we pile that on our stuff, and it's hard to bounce back up. It's tough to be resilient when you take all these things. But when you learn to I guess put the responsibility in other people and you just take it yourself. I accept that I want to feel and how I want to react. I want to do all those things, so I don't take those things personally, and I'm just going to get back up and do my thing. So I love that line from his book.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. All right. We got 3 minutes left. That's it. You guys have done a fantastic job. By the way, for our audience out there and those that are going to be watching in the future, Syndicate Talk Season 3. We have multiple episodes. We have 36 hours of syndicate members in our tribes sharing information from IT, finance, real estate, coaching. We have covered every gamut under the sun out of the syndicate community to bring business education, not just to the tribe, but to the world, free of charge, because education should not come at a premium, but it should come with a little bit of struggle, a little bit of sacrifice, and some time. You need to invest an entire hour, but an entire hour right here, what do we have? Multiple coaches talking about their own personal struggles, foibles, etc., and how to build a better you. So look to make the investment, because if you don't start with you, it doesn't happen. So taking the theme of starting with you, taking ownership of self to start with, I want everybody to give me their 30-second no-nonsense take. And by the way, Cari, it's okay to say fuck or shit on this call, because I checked the little box on YouTube that says this is not for children, okay? And the odd bad word can slip through just fine, not because YouTube isn't watching. YouTube goes, yeah, the odd bad word's okay, as long as it ain't like a Chris Rock special. We just have to check the box the other way and say, hey, there's a lot of profanity instead. But it's okay. The odd bad word can slip in. We're all adults here, and it's fine. But your 30-second, no nonsense, don't screw this up for yourself take, because people have got to get it right. We give them a little 30-day plan. We talked about resilience. Now, what is the no nonsense take that they got to do? And this needs to be cold bucket of water. Got to do it, or you are screwed. Breathe, do some push-ups. Dawn, lead us off. You're on mute. You literally muted yourself.
I muted myself. Who did that? You have to have a strategy and a plan. You cannot go forward without that. And part of your strategy is, like Wes talks about, your values, your whys. It's all built into that. You have to have a plan, and you have to check in that with every 90 days or more often. Make sure you're staying on it. You have a reason and set goals and timelines that you know where you're going. And then you're just builds up your confidence and you stay on track. Without it, you're going to drift.
Perfect. Wes, what you got? No nonsense, 30-second bucket of cold water. What do people
all these things we talked about, one thing, self-discipline. You got to do it. You just got to do it. And if you don't, nothing's going to change, right? You got to. Elon Musk talks about entrepreneurship. When he's asked for advice, he says, don't do it. It's fucking hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to grow in business, you got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to stick your chin out and get punched on the chin. So if you want to change your life, you want to change your business, be disciplined, make it happen.
Cari?
Yeah, that's great. I saw this amazing quote the other day, and this is my bucket of cold water for all of you. If the thoughts in your head was a person, would that be a person you would be friends with? And if the answer is no, then pay attention to how you talk to yourself, because it literally affects every single thing in your life. And if you can turn one thought around from negative, self-critical to kind, loving, and supportive, that's enough to start changing how you show up in the world.
Fantastic. Wes, Dawn, Cari, Syndicate Talks, Season 3, Episode 1 is all yours. It's in the can. It's in the bag. It's on the internet. It is live. It is out there for everybody to see, and they can't stop this. You have done a huge service to you, a credit to yourself, benefit to the members of our tribe, syndicate, and of course, provide education for free to the world at large. Wes, Dawn, and Cari, thank you for bringing you to here, the best of what you do, and giving it to other people free of charge. That is a gift that is immeasurable, because all it takes is one person to invest 1 hour of their time to get better because of what you've done today. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you. I heart you. And without you, we couldn't do this, because otherwise it'd just be me. And let's be honest, I love the sound of my own voice, but we need other voices to make good sense of this stuff. And without you, a Syndicate Talks Episode 1, Season 3 would not happen. Wes, thank you, brother. Dawn, thank you, brother. Cari, thank you, sister. It has been a pleasure and a privilege to be able to have you guys. And watch the notes as we update this episode, get it scrubbed up and pretty up. You need to reach out and talk to Dawn at Four Tree. You need to talk to Wes, the business beast. You need to talk to Cari, the self-kindness coach. Why? They're going to make you better. They're going to make your business better. They're going to make you smarter. They're going to make you stronger. And if you pay close enough attention, you're going to grow by 2 inches. I don't know. Is it true? Probably not. But you can't hurt to try, because maybe you do get just a little bit taller because of working with them. Or maybe you walk, as Matt puts it, like he's 10 feet tall and bulletproof, even though he's 5'6", and I still want to see him in a backpack on Paul's back, because I think that is going to be gold, baby. Absolute gold. Wes, Dawn, Cari, thank you so much. This has been a Syndicate Talks Season 3. We're back at her. We got 8 more episodes in this season, and you need to watch out for the treasure trove, the brain trust that makes up Syndicate. I have been your host, Mitch Cammidge. I hope that you have found this insightful, educational, and informative. Check out Season 1 and Season 2. Watch for the episodes of Season 3. And Season 4 has already been announced. That's happening in the spring of 2022. You need to continue to come back. And thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on a Syndicate Talks. And of course, Dawn, Wes, and Cari, because of you, this has been possible. Thank you so much.